and is only necessary for senators. So if you are not a senator and you're still here when that gets passed around, please don't sign it. You don't need to be here. And we will then proceed into public comment. So what public comment is it's an opportunity for anyone who is not officially a member of USG to join the members of USG in participating in Senate. So today, obviously, we have a very special guest, and our very special guest will have an opportunity to speak, and then all of you who I'm sure are here to ask questions to our very special guest will have an opportunity to line up. So we'll have people who have questions prepared line up in the middle of the floor where the standing podium is. I believe it should be on, and if it's not, we can easily resolve that. We'll ask that every person try to ask one question from themselves. If you're here with questions from others as well, just say, I have a question from so-and-so, and you can ask that. You can also ask one follow-up question after your question has been answered, if you have one in the moment. Now, if you have more than one question, that's perfectly fine. We just ask that you return to the end of the line to give others an opportunity to ask their questions, and then obviously we'll try to get everyone done. So the line will proceed, and if you have more than one question, hopefully you'll still have a chance to ask all of them. Are there any questions on the procedure? Abby?
Does that include senators?
Yes, that includes, yeah, I think everybody who has questions would, because, yeah, Interim President Merrick will just be speaking during public comment, so it doesn't make sense to sort of divide that up. That's a great question. Any other questions? Okay, so with that, it is a great honor to introduce President Merrick. Oh, and I will turn off. So thank you, and can we have a round of applause?
Thank you all. Thank you for your invitation, and it's a great pleasure to be with you. I'm president for less than 2 months, but I have been faculty at UConn for 12 years. I moved to UConn. I worked for the private sector. I worked for Toyota Motors. I had my startup in Atlanta. I worked in Vancouver for Federal Council of National Research Council on Clean Energy. And then I decided that really my passion is to be an educator and to come to classroom. So for 5 years I was teaching in material science and chemical engineering, sustainable energy, clean energy. And then I was a director of the tech part, vice president for research for 5 years, and last 2 months president. And I enjoy every day because for me being a faculty and being a part of academia is giving back and learning from young people what is the future that they want to see. And on that journey, I always says I go to a classroom to teach once and I learn twice. You know, I prepare my notebooks, but I'm always open to listen, I'm always open to engage, and I'm looking what the future holds for all of us. So thank you for having me. I'm so proud of everything that you do. I was today at the Huskytron and seeing, the biggest, largest donations that we have on the campus to fight the cancer of the children. And if you saw in the front of the building, I think IT building, people smashing the car, you can be thinking what is the madness going on at UConn. But that was very symbolic, and smashing the cars means we want to smash the cancer in children. And we wanted to paint and put that message on the car, but unfortunately the owner who donated didn't want us to paint. But the cause is really great. So I invite all of you to dance. 2 years ago we raised 1.5 million for the cause. Last year during the COVID, 1 million. It will happen again on April 2nd. And I think the biggest joy, at least in my life, I get by giving back. And I think something of giving back is very important to many of us who are at UConn. I also want to introduce in the back his colleague of mine, Mike Gilbert. He's Vice President for Students Affairs. I'm sure you worked with him and his office. Any problems that you have, they're always looking how to address. Dan Weiner sent his request that he could not be with you. His mother passed away during the weekend. But I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, and I'm here to engage with you in the dialogue. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, President Merrick. If you have a question, this is an opportunity to stand up. So I just ask that you stand in line in the center, and then we'll go from there. Okay? Is anybody here?
blue light that has had an out of order sign on it for the last week. Especially with the ongoing conversations about sexual assault and sexual violence, many survivors, including myself, see this as a slap in the face and an indication that they're not safe on this campus. What sort of actions can you commit to make sure that students feel safe here at UConn?
Thank you. I think that is always ongoing, making sure that everybody has a priority of students first and safety first. I'm sure you read my message about the sexual assault, and we have the group, and the group is composed of the students, faculty, administrators. We are looking at our processes, we are looking at the cases, we are looking what has been done and what we could do to prevent. So for me, no single case should be gone unaddressed, and everything that we can do in our power, we must do. So I think the working group report will be done before end of the semester, before the school year, and we are going to put the actions. And when we put the actions, we are also going to put the timetables, and we are going to monitor them. So it's not just going to be another kind of the report, that is there. Because if we don't look through, if we don't enhance our processes, if we don't look for those, we will not address the issues. And you are the part of the solution. So report is going to be available to everybody to read, is going to be posted on the web page, and you can always chip in with your comments and feedbacks.
I got a follow-up, right? In terms of accountability in addressing those action items on the report, what sort of student involvement is there going to be? I believe 3 of the 4 students on the committee are graduating at the end of this semester. So what sort of student involvement are we going to continue to have going forward to make sure that
we are putting the study group, and study group is going to present what is their solution that they want to see. But it doesn't mean that when somebody graduates that we are not going to have the group that is going to take actions. So the group that takes action is always going to have students being part of that action group. So we know that you are with us for 4 years, and faculty and students leave, but our focus is not going to go away. Thank you.
Hi, President Merrick. I actually have a sort of related question. Could you give us a brief update on the status of your task force? Like, what have you done so far?
I would like Mike Gilbert, if he can come and talk about the task force and how many meetings do they have. Mike, if you feel comfortable, I know Ellie is not here, she's leading that task force with a student, but Mike can talk about how many meetings. We even have the book that everybody who is on task force, including myself, has to read about the statistics, sexual assaults at the campuses, and the solution proposed. So, I would like Michael to give you more about, what the group is doing.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Michael Gilbert. I serve as UConn's Vice President for Student Affairs. Thank you for allowing me to join you this evening. The task force has convened. The task force has met, I believe now, on 2 occasions. I know certainly they've had their kickoff meeting, and the plan is to meet weekly through the end of the semester. And those meetings are the agendas are robust and really engaged. And as you may know, the chair of that task force is the Dean of Students, Ellie Doherty, and she's a co-chair along with 2 of our students, both Mason Holland and one of our graduate students sit as co-chairs of that committee. I will double check to make sure if there has been a second meeting, but I do know the intention was after the first kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago to meet weekly if possible, if that conforms to people's schedules. I'll sit closer.
Okay, cool.
And then one quick follow-up. You mentioned that the findings of the task force will be on the website. How will those be made? How will students know that they're there?
I'm going to send the message to community. The same way that I sent the message to community about the task force and what is objective of the task force and what are the goals. I will also send the message and say, here is the report. So everybody will be able to read.
So much, President.
satisfy or not satisfy, or how much you want to know, but we can definitely communicate that students would like to know more. So there is a safety committee that handles all of those reports. Michael, anything else?
Currently, the Dean of Students Office has information posted about reports made and responses to bias incidents on campus. And the group that's convening to work on sexual assault education and prevention is considering how to make that information available. That information needs to be carefully managed and presented because of privacy rights that all students have related to any legal issues and to educational records. But that is one thing that the committee will be deliberating.
Just to clarify about that, yeah, so is it the committee's responsibility to communicate that information to students?
No, that's not been determined yet. The committee will think about how best to present that information and what aspects of that information could be presented under the law. And then it will be determined by the administration how to effect that posting and that sharing of information.
Okay, as a follow-up to that, is it possible for you to share some of the potential ways in which they plan to communicate? Any of those discussions about options for communication?
I don't think there's been significant discussion of that yet, and I don't want to put words in the committee's mouth.
That's fine.
I think they do better without being steered and directed in that way.
That's fine. On behalf of a member of one of our committees, who cannot be here, Ayush, I'm going to ask his question. How will UConn involve more students in the work to prevent racially motivated attacks and bias-related incidents on campus and create, and we emphasize this, permanent solutions?
I do believe that when you are at UConn and you are a student, you are privileged. You have, our goal is always to give equal opportunities to everybody and to create inclusive environments. And our goal is not only to give you opportunity to academically develop, but also to share your concerns and with respect to others. So we have many of conversation of what is happening at campus. We engaged the students. We talked about the issues. We are talking what can be released, and as Mike says, we have to keep the privacy too. Investigation cannot be shared because it shares the names and everything, but there are the ways how things can be shared. What I think that the number one is safety. The number two is respect for all. The number three is inclusion. Is it that order? For some people, yes. For some people, no. But I would say safety is number one. Respect is number two. And number three, everybody has to be included. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, President Merrick. Yesterday, the Academic Affairs Committee passed legislation to diversify the hiring of faculty and staff at UConn. So on behalf of the committee, I'd like to ask, how will your administration work to recruit, hire, and retain more Black, Indigenous faculty of color here at UConn, especially those who are mid and senior level?
We looked, what is our recruitment policy, and we know that it's not enough just to post the ad, and we use the different outlets to post them. We have in PeopleSoft system and the people page system, and people apply that we can see the race, that we can see the gender, and that we can see age. So for us, it's truly going out and inviting people. But more than inviting, my experience at UConn has been that if you invite people, but you don't show them how inclusive is community, it's very hard for those people to picture themselves being at UConn. So one thing is inviting them, the other thing is making them at home, and third thing is retention. So I can tell you that when I came to UConn, I had offer at Ivy League school, and I met the first professor in chemical engineering who was female. I never in my career worked with another woman. And she wrote me such a nice email after my visit and giving the seminar that I says, I'm going to go to UConn because this is the place that is trying to open up for women. you include? How did you consider? And they says we announce, but announcing is not enough. It starts from the moment that you invite somebody, that you wait at the airport for them, that you host them for a dinner, that you say how badly you want them to be, and that you create environments that they can, when they come, they can see.
Thank you, President Merrick. And as a follow-up question, there are a couple of faculty members who are trying to develop an ethnic studies school or decolonial studies school. So how will you work with these faculty who are part of the Africana Studies Institute and Bell Institute to create this ethnic studies school?
So these faculty, whenever they propose something, it goes through the Senate for approval, it goes through the deans, it goes through the provost. So there are multiple steps, and all of those new programs, new faculties, and openings are dealt at the provost level.
Thank you, President Merrick.
Thank you.
Hi, President Merrick. So, what is the nature of UConn's business relationship with Israel, and how has it evolved since the administration's visit in late February this year?
So UConn signed the first MOU with Nachion in 2012. That's when the President Herbst and delegation went to Israel. Since that time, for 7 years, we have the Institute for the Peace, Ibrahim Institutes, about bringing the Middle East and the Israeli people together. By the end of this month, we are going to publish results of this institute and how many people from Middle East, Israel, Palestine, and North Africa came to UConn as exchange students. So for us, there is academic part and there is research part. Our collaboration with Tachyon has been on the clean energy and environment. Since signing that MOU, we had the visiting professors and students coming. We published over 25 papers, and the recent trip to Israel was planned before me becoming ever president. So it was 1 year ahead of me being president. So it was the Governor's Lamont objective to look how do they innovate and how to bring innovation mentality and to Connecticut, how it's expand on the clean energy, how expand on the food agriculture, how to think about collaboration and what else we can do.
Thank you. And I just have a quick second question on behalf of a fellow committee member who could be here, Winta McConan. So, what is the nature of UConn's relationship with the Palestinian communities on campus? And how is the administration working to restore trust and respect for these students, especially given the several recent incidents of bias on campus?
As I said, I'm president for less than 2 months, so I cannot give you and say this is what administration done, with any of those relationships. I think, Michael can talk more about activities and what administration done, but as I said, every student at UConn has opportunity. Every student has to be included. And you saw my message when the 2 students said that they feel that they had been attacked, that somebody opened the window in the car and called them by names. I wish I don't have to say what I'm going to say, but I understand how hard it is to feel that you don't have the home. I'm from the country that doesn't exist. I never went back. I never have another passport. My parents has been refugees, and I wish I can say I don't know what is the feeling. But I'm very familiar what is the feeling of being hurt. And every morning that I wake up, I said, thanks God for America, because this country gives me the home that I lost.
Thank you.
Hi, President Merrick. I want to ask another question about the university's relationship with Israel. I just want to give a little bit of context before I ask my first question. The university has made several public statements about human rights issues in the past. Recently, you personally spoke up against the Russian military occupation in support and solidarity of Ukrainian people. 2 years ago, the university put out a statement against police brutality, speaking out against the racial bias in the policing system. Lots of human
provide the education, how we provide the support. Why delegation goes to Israel? We are state, we are land-grant university. So we are the state institution, and the trip was organized by state. So I'm not one who organized the trip. State has organization. We met with Palestine people. We met with people who are in the leading roles. We talked about innovation. So when I was there, the CFO of Google made an announcement that she's committing 25 million to improve diversity inclusion through innovation. And diversity inclusion for innovation was about engaging Palestine, Orthodox Jews, and women to be more innovative, to start their companies. So when I was there, I met the Palestine women that are running company. I met the Israeli women. I met the students from both sides.
I just have a quick follow-up question. Would you personally, I know you said you're not an expert in the field, but several major human rights institutes, like the Amnesty International, have declared the state of Israel as an apartheid state. Would you be willing to speak out against the human rights violations committed against the Palestinian people?
I'm against any violation. I'm against any abuse. And I'm against divorce. Okay, so this is my position. And as I told you, my parents died as refugees in Japan. I'm the person without country. I'm on the mixed faiths. My families are Jews, Christian, and Muslims. I celebrate all those three religions. So I'm always for peace. And the peace is, everything that I do is about how do we bring the peace and humanity to everything that we do.
So I just want to clarify, would you be willing to specifically call out the Israeli government?
No, I will not call anybody because I'm not in position to call or declare anything.
I just think it's a little hypocritical, I apologize for going over, but because you specifically called out the Russian government and stood in solidarity with Ukrainians, why is that same sentiment not extended to Palestine?
The people of Ukraine are bombarded every day by another nation.
So are
Other people of
Palestinians.
Palestine.
I was there and there was no bombardment. Okay? I'm not saying I'm not expert in any. I'm just saying it is human catastrophe. In the wars, they are not winners, okay? So it is a human tragedy for everybody. Anybody who has anybody killed in the war experienced a tragedy, regardless what is your nationality and what is your faith. And me, as somebody who buried so many of my family members, I experienced the pain of the war. And I know what it means. And what I'm saying that I believe that we are privileged by being in this country and being in this institution.
Okay, thank you. I just feel like a lack of explicit condemnation just because it should be critical to the community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sage, and this is Zoe working for the Native American Cultural Programs. I really appreciate your statement about learning from the students at UConn as a future university, which greatly aligns with our mission at NACP. As our student staff have been working towards becoming a cultural center for the last several years, we've been advocating for Native youth as future ancestors and leaders on this campus. We are very fortunate to be downstairs in a new space alongside the Middle Eastern cultural programs, yet neither org has achieved cultural center status. As we work to move our youth and students forward, how do you see cultural centers and the expansion of cultural programs into cultural centers becoming instrumental to the future of the university?
I think students should be creative. Students should be open-minded the way that they want to create things. I was telling the other day somebody, and maybe I'm too naive, that I would like to see the global centers, or centers for all. And I had been, student in Japan, and there was no another woman in the School of Engineering, and I didn't have any club, but I still was loved with my colleagues, Japanese colleagues, and they still provided the support. So I always believe that what you create, where do you see the world, and where you see something is missing. And that where comes your imagination and your creativity. But always think of the inclusion, because I think inclusion is a key. And that's when people says, why faculty of to students with disability and they says we don't feel there is enough for us. So what can we do more? Every great institutions want to be better than what it is today. So the question is what we want to do.
Just a follow-up question we have too is we're wondering how the administration is going to prioritize building relationships with communities like sovereign indigenous nations to ensure that the efforts we do at the cultural centers are maintained and the relationships are upheld.
Yeah, I think we had a number of initiatives. I think it's coming, creation of the center, creating the space at student union, and bringing more of those people and inviting them, and then, the way that you invite them is by listening, asking them to share their stories, asking them how they feel, and asking them how can you help them. So I think we have to have more clubs that are run by students, and you have the open forum that you can tell your stories or you can tell your visions, and then asking the others, to share their vision. So I think the community that grows are communities that are able to respect, that are able to listen, and that are able to take the actions. And actions many times come from students. They are presented to provost, the deans, myself, board, and we all try to put the initiatives.
Sorry, just one follow-up to that. Pretty much everything you mentioned there, we've been doing the
Yeah.
past 4 years.
So what is missing?
What's next? I mean, we're kind of at a standstill where it's like jump through one hoop, and once you do that, here's 7 more on the administrative side of things. So what do you recommend would be the next step? We've had the forums, we've built the programs, the initiatives.
You can say here are the gaps. This is all that we done, and here are the gaps that we cannot overcome without your support. You bring that to Michael and Ellie, they bring that to me, and I bring that to Board of Trustee. And we have the Board of Trustee that we talk about, what we want to build for our students. And we have those conversations. So I think if you have the white paper or something that you says, you help us to this level, but we are stuck and we cannot overcome those issues without your support. I think, Michael will bring that to cabinet. Thank you.
Here we go. This is much better. I don't know why we're both bending over. This is another question from a student who wished to remain anonymous. I know we've talked a lot about your visit to Israel. This student is asking how UConn plans to restore trust and respect in the relationship with Palestinian communities on campus. I think those students are feeling really offended and really hurt by that visit, regardless of the intentions behind it. How do you plan to kind of repair that relationship and reach out to them?
First, I don't, so if we can sit down and we can invite people from Ibrahim Center and we have to talk what has been done for Palestine and for Muslim community here. And then we have to talk what is missing. As I said, my trip to Israel was not personal. My trip was as a president of this institution. And, I went to school in Palestine. I have the family member for Palestine. And I have the love for everybody. I don't divide anybody by the nations, by the religions, by the, their beliefs or whatever. So I always believe that we can listen, but I also believe that we have to respect.
Of course, thank you. And this is from another student. She asks, how are we going to better support minorities on campus, specifically Black women?
We have African American Center, and we had conversation about this yesterday. And they are saying we are doing much more than what we do the previous year, but it's still not enough. So we have to align our activities and be realistic. And what are our goals that we can achieve, and how do we communicate those goals? And we should never be satisfied. Because some goals will be influenced by budget, but some goals have to be really intentional that we push for. In my office as an OEPR, I couldn't find, to recruit more people out of color, but with opportunity to do hybrid and remote work and offering that opportunity. had been able to find 5 African American women that wanted to take a job. So you have to understand that, you know, people are not always willing to come to Connecticut. But we have to think, you know, what are the other ways that we can engage people that they are part of our community. And slowly, I think they will come and they will love Connecticut. So.
Just to follow up to that, you mentioned that you would, it was like set goals, I think. You wanted to set goals and then you wanted to work toward them.
We ask all the deans to set the goals. You know, how many, increase the number of African American faculty, increase the number of the students, look the areas where we stagnated, look the areas that we must grow, and be intentional about it.
So the deans are working?
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Hello, President Merrick. Thanks for having questions from us. I'm here with some of my friends from the Muslim Student Association, and I'd like to just kind of reiterate, you know, I think that the university has been very clear, understands with the conflict in Ukraine, and I just want to ask, why is it that we can't provide that same solidarity as a university who's so forward-thinking and modern? Why can't we include that same kind of passion and solidarity in condemning the actions taken against Palestinian people for 73 years?
You know, as I said, I'm not expert. We have the Human Rights Institute. Things are happening through the Human Rights Institute. You know, as I said, I'm more than happy to sit down with Palestine students and better understand how do you feel and what that means for you, what that means for your family, how you feel ignored, you know, what is missing. And as I said, I'm from the Muslim country, I'm from Boston, okay? I grew up with Imam, singing on minaret, you know, and I can tell you, when I came to U.S. as a Bosnian citizen, after the September 11, I was searched at every single airport, okay? And I felt that I'm attacked, and I took it personal. And then I said, I know I'm not guilty, just arrive earlier at the airport and be prepared that you're going to be searched. And I know that hurts, okay? And that's what I'm saying. I'm willing to sit down. I'm willing to dive deeper what happens, how people feel. And as I said, I wish I don't have to tell you that I experienced it myself.
Thank you for that. Now, I understand it's thank you for sharing that story. That's really powerful. I see that the university has taken an open stance. I don't believe that we met with Ukrainian people before we, as a university, made a statement about what's going on in Ukraine. Is that something that you would be looking to do in the future?
Absolutely. I'm just saying I want to sit down and understand. And as I said in my first message, if you look, I says we support all Ukrainian and Russian students and faculty that are at UConn. Because the moment that you are out of your country and here you belong to this community, the moment that you belong to this community, we are going to take care of you. What is happening there is a human tragedy. I never went to back my home because my home doesn't exist. My parents are not alive. I searched for 2 years in every refugee camp, and I know what it means. Okay? And I know that everybody who is watching is a sucker. And I never believe that the war is a solution. I think war happened when diplomacy fails, when the dialogue fails, and that we will only solve the problems of genocide or anything by sitting down and saying this is unacceptable. And that's what I truly believe.
Thank you, and I hope that you will take action on those words and speak out against injustices.
Thank you.
Well, Madam President, I just want to commend you for speaking so far. What you've been saying is very powerful, and I do thank you very much for coming here today. I have sort of a general question about campus safety. You said earlier, to be our best on campus, we have to worry about safety, respect, and inclusion, which I completely agree about. It seems over the last year there's kind of been an increase in crime in the area, especially on certain roads where there isn't a lot of video surveillance or police activity. In that time, there's also been a growing divide between student body and police relations on campus. So I was wondering, what are some real steps we can take towards responding to crime alerts instead of just sending out an email? And also working with PD to not only protect the pack, but to sort of mend the relations between, and this can be anything, we can do events, we can do whatever, but what's a realistic goal we can set?
You know, I think realistic goals is thinking that we are all community. And, you know, and saying what is unacceptable is unacceptable. You know, so I have you know, somebody who is from our troops who, you know, who is here, and he's amazing. And you know, I see our troopers also helping so many of our students. So I think, you know, we have to be creative in everything. But I also want to introduce you somebody else who came to UConn, and Frank Jewett. You know, I just invited him 10 minutes before this event, and I wanted to introduce you Frank because he's our vice president for diversity, and somebody who cares deeply, who comes from different institutions, who has the different optics and looks our university from fresh perspective. And many times we have those conversations what we can do better. So Frank, if you can come and sit in front, thank you. And if you can give the round of applause because he has been amazing. Do you want to tell about your work with the police officers, because you had been talking to many students, you had connection with the safety department, you understood the issues, and there are a number of conversations that are happening.
Good evening, everyone. So how many folks, if you could raise your hand, have had a chance to meet Chief Lewis? All right, so quite a few. So as you know, Chief Lewis started this year, and it has hit the ground running in terms of engaging students, engaging faculty and staff, and is really committed to improving relations between the University Police Department and our student body. So if he hasn't had a chance to come to this meeting, I would absolutely encourage you to extend that invitation. He has met with students in our cultural centers. He has met with student leaders here in USG, and is very committed to making sure that relationships and the support and safety that they provide is at a level that we can all be, you know, pleased with and supportive of. So really encourage you to do that. The other thing I'll say is that we have a strong relationship between Office of Diversity and Inclusion with our police department. We've been collaborating to create a position in the larger division of public safety that will be a diversity liaison position. And that position will help to ensure that the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that we are putting in place across the university are also embedded in the Division of Public Safety. So those are just a couple of things that we're working on right now.
Just one follow-up question. Is there anything we can do on campus to predict crime waves? Because I know, especially during the later months of summer, one thing in particular, there is the catalytic converter black market in Connecticut, and there have been multiple robberies, people getting, you know, obviously cars totaled. You know, that sucks. Another thing, there's been like robberies at knife point. I know there were multiple incidences of stabbings as well. So what are some things that we can do, obviously fully working with the police department, to sort of anticipate these things happening on our large campus?
You know, I always believe that creativity starts with students, you know, and when we think we exhausted all ideas, there are always students who says, I have the new application, I have the new thoughts, how about to explore. And as I said, Michael is here, Ellie is accessible all the time, but share any of ideas that we have. I know we are putting more cameras. Is that going to solve the crime? I don't think so. But we are also, you know, if you are caring, whenever you see, call somebody. Even if it's false alarm, but says, I felt uncomfortable when I saw this, you know. So think about what are the ways that we can help. We can all help.
Thank you very much. And we're definitely looking forward to having the Chief of Police in the Senate meeting, so thank you very much.
How you doing, President? My name is Mohammed Sabed. I'm from the Muslim Student Association. As you can probably tell from my earlier comments, I'm here for a specific reason. You mentioned several times throughout this meeting that you've only been president for 2 months. You're not expert on the situation. I don't believe that that's something that's acceptable from our standpoint, students that come here to the university. The reasons are that because you are president, you are a leader, you are supposed to know these things. You're supposed to know what the university has done from the past. You're supposed to know what you're going to go up against, and more importantly, you're supposed to know what's right and wrong, the difference between both of them. It doesn't matter if the meeting was set up a year before. If you're going to take responsibility as interim president, I believe you should have said no to this meeting. If you know what it means to be a refugee, I think you should have also understood what it means for the 7 million other refugees from Palestine that are scattered across the world. Those that are still stuck in Jordan, those are still stuck in Egypt and in other places. Talk about bombardments. I mentioned Gaza earlier. They're constantly on blockade. I mean, in all honesty, I think everything you mentioned earlier doesn't really satisfy anything. The only thing that's going to satisfy the students here at UConn, and as you can tell, it's a very diverse community that does not support this partnership, is to get rid of this this contract that you signed a month ago when you visited the apartheid state.
What I signed, extension of MOU, Memorandum of Understanding for Cooperation, that was already in place since 2012. Okay, so that's what I signed. What I said, what we control, what I says inclusion is the number one, and we control our attitude. And we control that hate doesn't have the place at UConn. That's what we control. As a human, we have power to communicate. And I think we have to be impeccable with our words. We have to sit down. We have to talk. We have to understand how people feel and what we can do. But I think attacking anybody, it's not the solution. Because it is not going to lead to what we want to see. As a citizen of UConn, we want to be creative. We want to be for peace. We want to promote humanity. And that can only happen if we sit down and talk what happened and what is not happening at UConn and what kind of the support you feel you are not getting at UConn.
I feel like for most of us here that have already spoken specifically about this issue, we'll be looking forward to sitting down and pushing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would like people who are the part of Ibrahim project for 7 days, 7 years, that we significantly support in the West, to come and talk about Middle East and what we do there.
Hi, Mr. President, or Mrs. President. Thank you for.
You are used to have all misters. This is how far we go with our diversity.
I appreciate you coming to answer these questions. So I had a question again about Palestine. So to me, I'm from North Africa, and it feels very misrepresentative to be talking to Israeli government officials in order to try to unify the Middle East, because they are one of the main perpetrators of violence in the Middle East. So I'm wondering what the thinking behind that was. I know this is a project from 2012, as you mentioned earlier, but when you were taking on the responsibilities of the project, what was the thinking behind that?
Okay, I can tell you that I met with a group of Palestine, as I said, who are the part of Israeli government. They are the part of the Ministry of Health, and they talked about, what are the issues, how they are looking through innovation and creation of the job, to help Palestine people. I don't know how real that is, as that's what I'm saying. It's not, I'm not the expert, but I met Palestine women who are the entrepreneurs there, and I wanted to learn from them, and I wanted to support them, and they talked what are they trying to achieve, So that's what I'm saying. I'm more than willing to sit down with Palestine students. I'm more than willing to people who lead this Ibrahim initiative at UConn for 7 years. I'm more than happy to connect with people in Israel who are Palestinians that I met and say, please talk about your experience, because you are the one who live it, okay? We are the one who have our perception about what is happening there. But people there are people who are experiencing either the pain or whatever is happening. And they can tell, are they included or excluded, or how they feel. And I think through them, we can learn a lot.
Okay, I appreciate you taking the initiative of wanting to meet with Palestinian students. Just as a follow-up, how can we ensure that this meeting will actually take place? Because I do know many students, including myself, have reached out to you with emails and other UConn officials, and it seems like these emails are being ignored. So I was wondering how we can ensure that this meeting.
I don't know. Is one of the student representative from Muslim group Bahram. I talked to him and I organized.
Who was it? Who was it?
Bahram. I have his email and I organized to have the lunch with him, you know, so, and he talked about all these issues and I said, look, I'm willing to sit down and talk to you about those issues. So, you know, and we talked about our experiences and, you know, what it meant for him and what it meant for me.
Okay, I appreciate it and I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely, and as I said, it will be global affairs, it will be more people who are engaged, you know, and I'm absolutely open to it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Hi, President Barrett. I just wanted to thank you for stepping up to this role, and I also really appreciate you sharing your immigrant experience as a fellow immigrant who fled violence as well. My question is related to, we've worked together before in Senate Executive Committee, and I know you did a lot of awesome work related to bringing research dollars to UConn. So I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about what research dollars are coming to UConn, what exciting things we're at the forefront of. I think we forget too often that we're like a major research university. So just kind of wanted to hear something about that.
Thank you, thank you. You know, as I said, I came to UConn as a faculty in sustainable energy, and I really wanted to build, to give opportunity to young people and maybe with young people. And my first graduate student is somebody who was my technician when I had a startup in company in Atlanta. And I saw great potential in him, but he was somebody who was doing 2-3 jobs, no money to go and get educated, family to support, and many issues. And for me, you know, seeing the bright people with a great potential, but not having the opportunities, was something that I wanted to come to academia. And if you look my book on solid oxide fuel cells, I recruited students from Iran that many faculty declined to recruit. And I said, it's not that I'm going to recruit you, I'm going to help you to be successful. And we are going to write this book together. And we spent more than 2 years going and writing that book about sustainability and where is the research. What we've done at UConn is providing more seed funding for the faculty to create the preliminary data and be successful. What I also done, I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. talking that we have amazing students and that we have amazing faculty and that they have to come to see us. And when they came and see our labs, I started with Bill Mustaine. We have the senior lab in engineering, but I saw so much potential that we started junior lab. And we will do the experiments in the batteries, experiments in the supercapacitors, and doing the project hands-on. So what we've done really is inviting Department from NSF, Department of Energy, Agriculture, to show what our students are doing. And what I'm seeing in last 8 years is more appetite from students, even when they are in the freshman and sophomore, that they want to get independent credit and they want to work with the faculty in the research lab. One thing is curiosity. The second thing is they are so innovative. The third thing and we open many avenues for students to be included, undergraduate students. We also run during the summer program for high school teachers. And we organize 8 weeks training, and then we go to high school, especially in the areas, we have distressed cities in this state. We are so divided as a state when it comes to wealth of this state. We have the wealthiest part of the country in this state and poorest parts of the country. I was the other day in Waterbury talking to mayor of the Waterbury, where there are many immigrants, many children, and who need help, who are so creative, who want to make the difference, but there is no enough support. And that support from university is essential for them to succeed. So I think research is very important because we solve societal issues with research. So when I went to Japan, I studied fuel cells, I studied batteries, I was the part of the Kyoto Protocol. I was one who was protesting against the countries who use people for mining the coal and using the gases and all of this. I said to you, solve the problems for one part of the world, but you completely damage the people in other part of the world that don't have the power to fight against the lobbies. So I was one, like you, I had idea what world has to look alike. I was always promoting the climate change, that is a real issue. So before Paris Protocol, it was a Kyoto Protocol. And Kyoto Protocol was to put the tax on 22 most developed countries for the penalty for the green gas house emissions. So that was a Kyoto Protocol. We are still here because we didn't solve the problem. We still talk about sustainability at the campus. We still talk what we can do, and those climate change issues are real. And I feel almost defeated being here saying that those are the challenges that I'm going to pass to you because I didn't win that fight. And that fight is for everybody to think about, from our behavior, from our research, from looking for the solutions.
Thanks again for your service.
Hi, President Merrick. My name is Anya Mehta. I'm a multicultural diversity senator and the undergraduate Title IX coordinator. And my question to you is your administration and are you committed to taking an anti-racist approach with the long-term policies you plan to implement?
As I said, inclusion is our priority. And everything that is that people feel or perceive as racial comments, it's not accepted. Everything that hurts people, it's not accepted. Everything that people feel they are not safe by being members of community is not accepted. And we are looking on all measures. And I write to you and I say, these are the policy that we are reviewing, bias policy, students' conduct, everything.
Okay. And as a quick follow-up question, you are the interim president, so by definition you will be replaced at some point. And I'm just wondering, what is your plan when that new administration comes in to continue the work that you've been doing? Because it feels like, as of right now, there's just like a revolving door where every administration has a great idea and great policies they want to implement, but then nothing really happens because a new administration takes over.
I think there are the things that if we work with the board of trustee, and we have many deans who have been here for years. We have Dean Kazarunian, who has been here for 35 years, Kazan Kazarunian. So I think we have to ensure that if provost and president change, that our priorities do not. That we have almost like a roadmap. And this is our roadmap that we have to review. Because what happens, we all do the promises, we move on, and nobody looks what happened. So it's almost like accountability, and where is the accountability? And the accountability is easier if it's with the schools, and board of trustee reminds us, and that way, we have a student, dean of students affairs, and they says, this is what is from our students, regardless who is the president. Because we are all of that part of that culture. And if we want to change an implementation of the change, we also have to review. and we have to see how we are doing. And without that review, then it becomes, just a nice idea and nothing happens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President. I wanted to thank you for coming this evening. And my name is Luke Villani. I am a USG Senator who represents Towers East. I live in East. And I'm also the president of the UConn Historical Society, which is a newly formed group here on UConn. And for me personally, historical preservation is very important. We have a lot of historic buildings here at UConn. And I wanted to know, because presidents have often influenced how we preserve our buildings, from Austin, who wasn't very keen on preserving things, to Babbage, who was very dedicated to such endeavors. And I want to know what your stance was on historical preservation here at UConn and possibly expanding that preservation.
Thank you so much. I like historical buildings. For me, they have the memories, they have the function. They are something that we relate to. I live in a house built in 1928, so I like those things. Many times it comes also to environmental health and safety agencies and what they tell us what we can preserve and what we cannot preserve. My lab is in the Depot campus in the Center for Clean Energy Engineering, and what breaks my heart seeing those abandoned buildings. And we talk to state, we talk to representatives, what are the brown buildings that we can renovate, and we are renovating some of them, and we want to have people living in them or making them functional. So I'm all for preserving, because it has a memories, they are beautiful, people relate to them, people had experiences in them, and people love them.
Thank you. And as a follow-up question, so I am not sure if you know, but the historical preservation, the historical district under the National Preservation Office was made in the 1980s, and at that time, certain buildings such as Young and Radcliffe Hicks were not included because they were not old by that time, and now it's been about 40 years since that district was created. And I wanted to know what the university's stance was on possibly increasing the registry of buildings, historical structures on campus, and putting them under the federal registry, like the other buildings were in the 1980s.
We have our chief officer, Laura. She's working on registering those, and I know that the area where is the South Campus doors are going to be, there are 2 brown buildings that are going to be renovated. So I think she's working with state and looking what are the buildings that we are going to renovate first.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President. My name is Wintab. I am a multicultural and diversity senator. I'm also on the diversity committee. What I wanted to ask you today is, a lot of students don't feel safe on campus lately with the rising sexual assault and crime alerts. And then when you have UCPD not handling the crime the way they should, not believing the students, victim blaming, and so on and so forth, students that look like me, Black women, Black students, and just students in general don't feel safe. And I wanted to know how you are trying to build a good and trusting relationship with the UCPD and the students, and what is your office doing to achieve that, to make sure that we are not afraid of the cops and that we actually trust them to protect us? Because right now, I don't think a lot of us trust them.
I think we had frank addressing. I think you being able to express in your next Senate meeting and begging our chief of police and our safety officer and talking to them directly how you feel. I think they are going to be able to think of the ways that people perceive them. And many times it's when you get to know people, your perception can change. Many times I'm scared myself seeing police officer who's like this, and I'm looking and tall and I'm small and I'm just afraid to even say hello, So I think we have to be Again, we have to come to the dialogue and saying this is what we would like to see on the campus. Maybe, maybe not police cars the way that they are. When I was student in Japan, the police officer was on the bikes. So whenever I saw the police officer on the bike, I felt this is friendly police officer. I don't know was he friendly or not, but at least it didn't look in the huge SUV, So it is I think the two-way street, but I think Frank will be happy to work with the chief of police and invite them in the next Senate meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. I also have a follow-up question, and I'm really glad you brought up, the cars and stuff, because documents have revealed that UCPD is in possession of 82 AR-15s, 130 pistols, and nearly 105,000 rounds of ammunition. And also, we are, part of the 1013 program, which basically gives police departments military weapons. Now, knowing that fact, how is your office trying to have military weapons, but also create a stable and trusting relationship with the police when we see AR-15s every time they're called, when we see guns and pistols and everything every time we see the cops? It's kind of hard to trust them, just not even just looking at them because they're big, but knowing that they're in possession of these militarized weapons. How are you trying to rectify that, and how are you trying to rectify UConn's role in the 1033 program?
As I said, them hearing from you directly and saying this is our concern, me sharing with them, and saying this is what I heard from students, and again sitting down and having that. I don't know is that all necessary. I'm not one who puts those policies in place, but I'm the one who can initiate conversation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm President Merrick. I know you've talked a lot about your involvement with the Israel trip, and I just want to ask two questions. One, first about your own personal opinions, just sort of as a hypothetical, forgetting the trip to Palestine. Do you think if a government is guilty of committing apartheid, should the university, would it be moral for the university to try to increase financial and diplomatic ties with that country?
We are not increasing financial ties with country. And as I said, we met with both Palestinians and Israelis during our trip. Our trip was not to discriminate. We talked about Ibrahim peace. We talked about how to bring more Palestinians to UConn. We talked about Middle East peace. So please be patient. Next time, Dan Weiner is going to be in this committee. We are going to publish what we done. And after you read, if you are not satisfied, please write to me. Please copy Michael and Frank, and then we are going to have conversation.
Okay, and I just had another follow-up question. I know you said you met with somebody. I don't remember who you said you met with.
I will send you his email. He says he's a representative of the Muslims organization, and we are scheduling to have the lunch.
Okay, I'm on the Muslim Student Association board. Neither I or any of the other organization kind of pushing for the university to recognize Palestine. We're aware of this. Is it possible for us to be included in this discussion?
Absolutely.
Who should we talk to about that? Is there somebody out there we can talk to just make sure we're not?
Absolutely. Like when I have the lunch with him, I will invite people from Ibrahim Institute. I would be more than happy having you there. Anybody, anybody who wants to talk and share their concern, I'm willing to, to listen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, President Merrick. My name is Khadijah, and I am a representative of the UConn Muslim Union. And so this past semester, we've been working tirelessly to prepare for Ramadan, which is a month of fasting, and for Eid, which is the celebration after. And it was due to the Muslim students' work that this happened. So I'm wondering, why was there no preparation on the administration side to support the community, and why was it all on the students to ask the university to prepare? And then also, how will this improve in the future?
I will ask Michael, who is in charge of the students, to talk about, what can be done with the student union and who prepares the meals and how those meals You know, Michael, you have anything to say?
Only that I've not been a participant in those discussions. I would be interested to learn more and to work with you and other student leaders who have done this, so we can understand further what you were encountering and what has been developed so far and where there still remain gaps.
Well, there was already word that the president's office was sponsoring the program. So I don't understand.
Sorry, what's the president office sponsoring?
The president's office and the university admission, multiple organizations are supporting the Muslim community right now. So I don't understand the lack of understanding between me and you, and between me and you. Like, we have already made that discussion, so I don't understand why we're raising it.
You know, I'm not sure that I understood your question. You are saying, and I'm going to paraphrase, that before the Ramadan, when you fast, there is no support from the university for students to fast. Is that what you are saying or not?
There was no plan in action to support Muslim students, and the Muslim students had to ask the university to support us. So I'm asking, why was there no preparation on the university side? Why was it all on the students?
I really cannot talk about that because I don't know what was preparation that was promised. What I'm handling now and working with the students' representation is a food security for students. Because I have 25 petitions from students that are having that they are suffering from the food security. And those are the students who are commuters. And those are the students that are in our regional campuses. And those are the students that we distributed hundreds of dollars and they still have food insecurity. So, you know, so when I think of what are the needs, I'm thinking the big pictures, and I'm not sure what was promised, you know, to our Muslims group that was not honored. You know,
There was no promise, that's the point. There was no promise before the students asked the university. Now there's a plan because we've been working. But I'm saying that if the students did not ask, there would be no preparation for Ramadan. So I'm wondering what's going to happen the next year after students graduate. What is the plan from the university?
So if you can share your proposals and what you ask and what you've done and what can be done, then I'm willing to sit down with Michael and Frank and review your proposal. But Frank, if you have
Yeah, I was
anything.
just going to ask, I know that some of the students in the Middle Eastern Students Association were working with a couple of folks in our office to do some work in that area in terms of preparation. I don't know if you were part of that. I also know that the provost office is taking the lead
Frank, can you
on.
come to Michael?
No, I know that. Like,
Okay.
I'm part of that group.
Okay.
I'm not part of the Middle Eastern Student Association, but I'm asking that it was up to the students to do this. So why didn't the university administration approach us or have that plan already?
And I'm suggesting now that we have this organization in place within the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, that will happen moving forward. So students won't have to initiate. We have committed to creating a Middle Eastern Cultural Center to do some of that work, and we'll do all of that work. And I know not everybody's a part of that, but in terms of engaging this administration around driving some of these initiatives that you're talking about, that will come out of the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, which is a part of the administration. Sometimes we forget that.
Okay.
Hi, me again. I wanted to steer the conversation back a little bit to sexual assault because one of the first questions that was asked, I'm sorry, I don't remember who asked it, was about the Sexual Assault Commission. And Vice President Gilbert, you mentioned something about the agendas that were very robust and all these great things about it. And I've been, for part of this meeting, I've been searching the internet and been completely unable to find any of that. So can both of you commit to being really, really transparent, maybe even live streaming the meetings, making sure that students who are worried about their safety are able to access the information, able to know what's going on, and to set up channels where students outside of the 4 undergraduates representing over 24,000 students can give their feedback to the commission and make sure that before it concludes, they can provide feedback to you.
Thank you. I think that is a good insight. And and I can tell you that when I worked on the mental health and well-being of students, that study was for 6 months. But what we will do regular updates, and I don't see any issue after the committee meets to send the meeting minutes and post on the web page and say this is a sexual assault working group. This is what we discussed today, and here are the people who participated. So that way you can be, you can update, you can look there for the people, you can ask the question, and you can make suggestions.
And can there be a form or an email or something by which students can ask questions? Because right now I know a lot of students are just in the dark about how to even get information about this.
I think we can put on the web page questions and answers, so that students can post the questions and maybe committee reviews, bi-weekly or something, that they are the answers or person who can answer those questions.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it's impossible.
Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to say, welcome to USG Senate. I hope you're enjoying it. So I know a lot of the things you were saying, we were talking about student representation and understanding students and what they need. At USG, I'm the student services director, so I deal with a lot of student services, what they need and what they don't need. And I think one of the important things that you've been talking about is students' experiences on campus and how we can improve that. And I think one of the best ways to improve that could possibly be working on providing menstruating students free menstrual care products on campus. We've already worked with the state so closely for advocating for this, and it seems like such an easy ask for the university to provide students who need proper hygiene products in the bathrooms, hygiene products, and I think this could be a great movement that could potentially take the burden off of USG and our office, who provides free menstrual products to over 1,000 students on campus. And maybe that could be something that the university offers, because I know a lot of menstruating people in this room can understand that it's not easy to always have to go to the student union and pick up a package of menstrual products for 6 months when you're on your way to class and you are menstruating right now. It's kind of a pressing issue and no one wants to use like a wadded up piece of tissue. So there could be some steps that we could take to alleviate that. This could be another forum that we can understand some student issues like beyond menstruation equity, but just menstruation rights on campus, understanding some of the things that could be offered at Shaw. I was wondering how you'd like to expand upon that.
Thank you for that question. And we had that conversation, and I worked with a group called Dignity, and Jessica Sack is somebody who started 5 years ago, non-profit, sharing hygienic products for free and doing donations. And we had conversation with her how we can expand this at UConn. And how we can provide the products as a part of our bathrooms, like we provide the soaps. So I hope something will happen, because we already started those conversations. And I know that her institution or her nonprofit can grow significantly. She has been addressing the issues in Harvard and distressed cities, but we also talked about campus community. So, thank you.
So for a follow-up question, currently at the university, the free menstrual products were provided through a program at USG called Tampon Time and the Tampon Time Initiative, which had to end in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. Is there any opportunity that you could collaborate with our office to continue that program?
Yes, we talked to state government, and we asked them to continue to support that program through the ARPA funding, the federal funding, to support our students. So we asked for them for that extension. But we want to see what after. We really want to see what is the way that we can continually support this, almost like providing the books, that we don't depend on the state or federal government support, and that we can sustain those activities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. So a lot of the solutions for a lot of the problems that were brought up front today was to sit down and talk. And that is obviously something we need to do. We can't fix the problem without knowing what the problem is. But I feel like that's all we've been doing. I've been here for 3 years at UConn, and racism, sexual assault, misogyny, these are the topics that we've been discussing, me and my friends, me and my acquaintances have been discussing for the past 3 years. Can you give us a promise that if not all, at least 1 or 2 goals will be met before the next fiscal year to ensure that students can trust the administration and just UConn as a whole, and to also ensure that you guys are taken seriously and not just creating committees, creating these offices just to pacify the students until we forget about the issue and bring it up the next time.
Thank you. You know, I want to ensure you that we are not buying time, okay? And as I said, I was the activist and I'm still the activist when it comes to climate change and sustainability. And I know what means the passion, and I see passion in each of you. You know, so sexual assault study will be done and it will be reported, and I will personally send to every student and every member of this community what are the results, and then what I will ask, I don't know who is the next president or what happens next, but I'm going to suggest to Board of Trustees that every year there is annual review and update how we are doing. Because some initiatives we take and we relapse, and that's not acceptable. So, thank you. Thank you. Oh, Huskies, I had fun. So, as you met people, you know, you see me as a president, and president did definitely set directions and tones. But, you know, every president is good as they team. And I want you to think of people who can be resource and support to you, like Frank, Michael, Ellie, Carl, Deans. And I have 3 of my children graduated from UConn. One is still at UConn. Every time he has a trouble, he writes to Dean and goes to Provost. You know, so you have the mechanisms to address the issues. And inviting us here and having the separate meeting. As I said, I'm always willing to come and listen, and students are number 1. For me, everything that I do at UConn, students are first. And this is the only way that we can succeed if we put students first. And one day you are going to graduate, but you are always going to remember your experience at UConn. And what I'm asking you when you graduate, stay connected, be the mentor to the next generation of the students, share your passion, share your vision, and keep us accountable. Thank you for having me. I'm sure you have the full agenda, you know.
Thank you to Dr. Merrick and Dr. Dewitt and Dr. Gilbert for coming in today. If we could have one more round of applause. It's not easy. Yes, those questions. Okay, so we're going to take a small recess for the next 10 minutes. So if you want to get up, stretch your legs. For those of you who are not in USG, feel free to go home, get some food, because we'll just be going into our normal agenda. So I will see you all here in 10 minutes. Thank you all for coming out.
not be doing reports in person, so if you have questions for anyone who's on the list of reports, please just contact them in private, or talk to them at the end of Senate. Most of them are here right now, and the rest of them you see pretty frequently. Are there any questions or concerns about that decision?
Bye, Anna.
Bye, John. Okay, moving on. We're going to move into voting items. The first is to approve the minutes from 3/9/22. Are there any points of discussion on these minutes? Give everybody a minute. Wait, which Sunday? It's from the previous Senate, 3/9. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into questions. Any questions on the minutes? I know I did that in reverse, but any questions on these minutes? Okay, excellent. So with that, I'm going to motion to pass these minutes by unanimous consent. Any objections? Excellent. And so these minutes pass, and we can move into our first piece of legislation, which is a constitutional amendment adding the funding supervisor to the governing board. So Ben, if you want to come on up to the mic and present your legislation, you can take all the time you need.
There we go. Hey everyone. So this is a constitutional amendment that adds the funding supervisors to the Gov Board. So for those of you who don't know, USG, one of our primary missions, is club funding that's overseen by the funding staff in the direction of the governing board. Thank you, Abby. So being directed by the funding supervisor. The funding supervisor really acts independently, just like the committee chairs. They really act independently of any supervision for the most part. They are their own person. They are really the experts on funding policy, and as such, it makes sense that they are on Gov Board. I have heard a rumor, I'm not sure how true it is, but it is from Damani, that the funding supervisor used to be on the Gov Board and basically didn't want, like in 2019, there was a funding supervisor who didn't want to be on the Gov Board anymore, got this removed. Warda, our current funding supervisor, is strongly in favor of this, and I'm confident that it will be good for the organization.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben, for presenting. Are there any questions on Ben's legislation? Okay, any points of discussion?
I'm going to ask a question.
Okay, although you should ask that perfect, that's easier. Thank you, Ben. Oh, another one. Yeah, no, it isn't. All right.
So I do have one question. What are your perceived advantages of adding this position to GovBoard?
Yeah, so the club funding is a $1 million line item on our budget every year. The funding supervisor oversees a lot of money going out. And honestly, just from my work in the transition as well as my experience as a senator last year, the funding supervisor has a lot of really, really great ideas. They know the funding staff inside and out. They know, what the roadblocks are, what the stumbling blocks are, how to overcome them, how to streamline the process, get more money out to students. It makes sense for them to have a voice on the governing board.
If it means we can get cookies back in Senate.
Let's get some cookies.
They're having a hard time. Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions on this piece of legislation? Eric, is that a question? Excellent. Thank you, Ben.
So I just wanted to ask, adding this position onto the governing board, does that affect any fiscal matters? I believe they're being paid, but does that add any other additional expenditures and whatnot?
So the only expenditure that it adds is if the funding supervisor is required to go to Gov Board, we'll pay them to go to Gov Board. So it's like an extra, $50 a week or so. So it's not going to break the bank.
Okay, thank you, Eric, for your question. Any other questions on this piece of legislation? All right, seeing none, we're going to move into discussion. Any points of discussion? And I know I said discussion earlier, but it was the wrong order, so we're going back into it. Any points of discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to put this to a vote. So if you are in favor, you say aye. If you're opposed, you say nay. And if you want to abstain, you say aye during the abstention period. Of course, you say these when I ask for the appropriate period, so don't all speak at once. Okay, so all in favor? Black, Indigenous, people of color faculty. Karen and Abby, whenever you're ready. And this is actually a great segue from the question earlier that was posed to President Merrick.
Hi everyone. First, we'd both like to say thank you to the Academic Affairs Committee for their support on this legislation. This legislation calls for increasing the recruitment and retention rates of faculty members who are Black, Indigenous, people of color. We have a couple provisions for recruiting and supporting graduate students who are predoctoral or postdoctoral, and funding and establishing a mentorship program that will help faculty of color here battle the sociocultural problems that they uniquely face. Are there any questions?
Do you want us to go over it in more detail? No?
Can you bring up some of the
Yes.
Can you bring up some of the
Who just
statistics
said
about
no?
hiring and how they're very low in certain years?
Yes. So some of the statistics that we're citing are regarding, gotta find it first, hiring trend data from 2013 to 2017, which is the most recent data that we were able to find, which is a little bit outdated. In the years 2014 and 2015, not a single Black women faculty member was hired. Not one.
Not one, zero.
And the hiring of Black men faculty members fluctuate yearly, ranging from 0% to 4.5%. And according to 2017 data for applicants, tenure track and clinical faculty positions, the Black applicant pool comprised 1.7% of the total pool, 1.6% of the interview pool, and 3.8% of hires. So as you can see, our Black faculty are not being hired and they're not being retained. And then looking at the undergraduate enrollment, the numbers are also pretty low. Gotta look at it.
To show how much the faculty should represent the students, we found a statistic that shows that from 1990 to 2021, the percentage of undergraduate students of color has risen from 10.9% in 1990 to 41.5% in 2021. But yet, the faculty of color who are on the tenured track, and clinical faculty workforce are only 26.6% of this population.
Yeah, so clearly we're having an increase in diversity of students, but not the same increase in faculty. So that kind of means that we need our faculty to represent our student body, and that's not happening. So that's kind of the purpose of this legislation. The reason that we're targeting graduate students is because that's one of the major pools that faculty are hired from. And our basis for the demands that we're making on behalf of the graduate school are coming from a 2020-2021 survey of BIPOC graduate students. And it's actually not just a survey, it's a study that was done. So that's where kind of our demands are coming from that perspective. We're also calling for changes to the PTR, which is promotion, tenure, and reappointment procedures, because we would like them audited, because faculty of color, as we saw through the Dr. Matoma case recently, are not being done equitably, so we would like an audit of those procedures to figure out where the problems are and how we can address them moving forward.
And a major point that we like to raise is working with the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Julie Wade, to ensure that the institutes on campus have adequate funding and staffing. That includes Africana Studies, El Instituto Asian and Asian American Studies, Native American and Indigenous Studies, and more.
And I just want to talk a little bit about where this will be going after, because this is a really jam-packed full piece of legislation. There's a lot of action in here. There's a lot of detail in here. And that will be something that will be a huge challenge to implement. And I honestly don't think that the two of us are going to be able to accomplish it. So kind of our goal here is to start this conversation and inform the administration of where the gaps are, so they can then take their decades left that they have here to address that. And as President Merrick said when she was speaking, when we asked questions about this,
she's told us now that the deans are already working on diversifying their faculty hires. So our plan moving forward, I think, will be to talk to those deans, since President Merrick says that they're already in progress in doing this. So we'll be bringing this legislation to them to hopefully steer them in the direction that we are seeing problems as students, so they know what from our perspective should be being addressed, so they can see if that's an avenue that they want to pursue as well.
Okay, and with that, are there any questions on this piece of legislation? Okay, any points of discussion? Okay, do I dare to pass it by unanimous consent? Do the authors have a preference? Okay, so I'm going to motion to pass this by unanimous consent because there's absolutely no discussion or questions. Are there any objections to passing it by unanimous consent? Okay, seeing none, this piece of legislation passes. Congratulations. Okay, so that brings us to our discussion section. Are there any points of discussion that anyone would like to bring up for the Senate? Okay, seeing none, we move into our announcements. First are either Peter and Carter. At least Peter's here. I know we saw Carter earlier. Did you want to say anything about the banquet? Yeah.
All right, hi everyone. I'm pretty sure like a lot of people have already signed up for the banquet RSVP. It is due tonight at midnight. If you want to RSVP to that, the link is in the USG group me. I can send it again if you don't have it, or come see me after. If you're not in the group me, I can get that too as well. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Free food. We have a +1. We provide transportation as well. Dancing. It's going to be a really good night. So try to make it. It's going to be a really good time. There'll be some awards as well. If you have any questions about it, you can let me know. It's held April 23rd from 6 to 11 p.m. Again, RSVP is due tonight by midnight. Thank you.
Applause for Peter and Carter. Yeah. Wait, no. Yeah, that equal distribution of work. Okay, so finally, what you're all waiting for, potentially, did everyone have a chance to scan the QR code? Or should I put that back up? Okay. Here we go, here's the QR code. You know what to do, as long as you're not on our payroll. And so today we have a little surprise, sort of. So basically, as you've heard us complain many times, we are having a really hard time with funding, getting the gift cards and the food that we want approved for caucus and Senate, something that we keep trying for. We keep having obstacles. So today, because of those obstacles, we were not able to get gift cards. So instead, we have donuts for you. So we'll be raffling off donuts. 2 boxes of them. Okay. It was a struggle to get them out. Okay, stop making fun of me, I'm small. Okay, so is everybody all set on the QR code? Okay.
I can, but it's
For that reason, if anybody does win these donuts and you decide to eat them before you leave, make sure you don't give any to Mason because he's bullying in a public place. Yeah. Okay. Is everybody all set? Come on, Mackenzie. Okay.
You have to be serious.
Okay, that's totally fair. I did experience that recently.
You want to be a non-payroll resident?
You can't get payroll.
Federal language is paycheck for a donut. See, I didn't say that.
You can start with okay. Okay, so if you want.
Yeah, so there's 18.
Okay. So Allie will be announcing the winners as we do the raffle process of random number. Yeah. Oh shoot. Oh, I forgot to send it in the. Okay, wait. I gotta send it in the chat. Wait. It's not exactly how it works. Are we doing only people here or WebEx? It's WebEx. That's what's happening now.
Yeah, we got.
Yikes! Yikes! Okay, guys, you want to stop?
Didn't Melody?
Yes.
Yeah. Guys, fill out the
Well,
Melody's right there, you guys.
Actually, they're not in person, and it's donuts.
Sorry. Well, no, this is what I mean. If somebody knows the person, it's a phone system, just like last time. Did you receive the gift last time? So it worked. It worked last time.
Yeah, so it's actually donuts. You guys can fill it out if you want, but if you win them, you might have to come to me and get them. So I think
give one to her.
No,
Give one to anybody but Kenny.
Senate is getting a little ready. Okay.
When you said there was no drama in the Senate, you were not talking.
Okay, we only have the good kind of drama here. Okay, so with that, we're going to call to close at 8:26 p.m. Thank you all for coming for a solid 2 hours, and have a great afternoon, and hopefully a great stress-free week.
Mr. President has an announcement.
Is peanut butter or butter?
There's more doors than wheels.
Wheels are not found in nature, but doors are. There are millions more doors than wheels in this natural world.